Good evening. This is Rhonda from Hamden Action Now, and good afternoon on this wonderful Easter Sunday. We have really awesome community conversation that's going to happen today with the Citizens Climate Lobby. We have two awesome people who are doing really good work in our community to talk about renewable energy and the desperate need for Americans to really begin to cling to not clinging to fossil fuels and the use of those for electricity, heating, and various other things that we do in our daily lives. So on the other side, we're going to be hearing some really good information on why it's important to start doing more energy conservation measures in addition to climate control. It's also a matter of national security, we believe. So thank you, and we'll see you on the other side. Hello, everybody. How are you?
Hey there, Rhonda. Good to see you.
How are you? So, Eric, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Eric Fine. I live down here in New Haven, and I'm the group leader for Citizens Climate Lobby chapter of Greater New Haven. It's an international organization with a few 100,000 volunteers across the U.S. And my day job is I work for the Yale Program on Climate Change Communication, where we study how people think about climate change, what they understand, misunderstand, what policies they support.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me. And Eunice, can you introduce yourself as well? You can't hear? It might be your headphones. Everywhere all go. Well, let's go ahead and try. You might want to just go ahead and unplug the headphones and just go straight in and just use the speakerphone, because that might be the headphone, might be a problem. Sometimes that happens. Because Eric, I can hear you fine.
How about now? Can you unplug?
No.
There you
go.
We
can hear you now. I think the headphones were having a problem.
Okay.
I'm telling you. So if you could introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Hi, I'm Eunice Mahler, and I am a retired engineer, and I am passionate about solar and electric vehicles and getting our grid resilient.
Yes, I'm passionate about the electric vehicles as well. So tell us what you guys think about, relying so much on oil, given, obviously the war in Ukraine and the invasion of the Russian troops and things. And I didn't realize up until this started that I had Vladimir Putin oil in my car, right? I didn't, I knew we were getting oil from other parts of the world, but I had no idea that 3% of our oil came from Russian territories. So tell us a little bit about what you all think about that. I'm sure you have some thoughts.
It's interesting. As of a few years ago, the U.S. started exporting more fossil fuels than we import. So we're the largest exporter in the world, but at the same time, we still get some fossil fuels from Russia, a very small percentage of what we have.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was interesting, that, we just learned so much about, fossil fuels, where we get our our oil or whatever from all over the world. And and I'm always concerned about. I mean, I was always concerned about climate control anyway, because it's something that's really important to the longevity of our planet, and not to mention the weather is changing because of the use of all these climate things that we're ruining things, and we're continuing, and we always never seem to our country never seemed to really want to cling to it and really put out PSAs and things that we need to do to just kind of educate people on how important it is to start to preserve and really not to use energy like we used to. So what do you think, Eunice?
I think that's a really good point. And I'm wondering when our politicians will step up to ask us to do something. In the meantime, we can do something individually, um, but we have two ways that we have to deal with our reliance on fossil fuels and getting to our carbon reduction that we've committed to. And
Mm-hmm.
the policy one is a big one, and what we can do as individuals is also very actually big. We could make an effect without policy, I believe, if we just all like turn down how warm our houses are in winter
Mm-hmm.
and drove slower and hung our wash out to dry, and um, even moving the needle 5 to 10% less usage overall in the United States would really affect how we could start driving towards a reduction in our carbon.
There are
Yeah.
a lot of reasons that we should be energy independent, and one of them is that if we were not sending money over to Russia and the European Union wasn't sending money over to Russia for their fossil fuels, then we wouldn't be supporting what Russia or Vladimir Putin is doing in the Ukraine right now. But on so many other levels, as we just saw a major report come out a little more than a week ago from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. They said, we've been saying for a while we need to stop burning so many fossil fuels, and the quantity has still been increasing. And
Wow.
we really need to stop increasing by 2025, so in 3 short years, and have
Right.
that start to come down so that we don't make the impacts of climate change too intense to handle. But then another reason is, as we do that and do use renewables, let's say here in Connecticut, right now, we don't produce any fossil fuels in Connecticut. So a lot of the money that we're using for energy, it goes out of state and out of country. If we can first become energy efficient, but then learn to use wind, solar, and other kinds of renewable energy, then that means our energy dollars would stay close to home and support local communities.
Wow. Yes. I mean, 'cause we spend so much. I never forget when I went to, I don't always tell this story, when I went my first trip to Las Vegas. It was in the summertime. I mean, wow. It's literally 118 degrees out there, right? And so you walk into as soon as the doors open at the hotel, it's like you get this big burst of Arctic air conditioned air. So you could only imagine how much energy they are using to cool down these enormous casino buildings and hotels and things. Even when we go to New York City, just on, in the summertime, how hot it is on the corner of in Times Square, and then you walk into one of those buildings and it's freezing. So I always wonder why, like you said, Eunice, just to kind of just turn it down a little bit. Do we all have to be freezing and walking around with sweaters in the winter, in the middle of the summer? Can't we just make it comfortable as opposed to freezing? So I agree. I just think that there's so many ways that even we can individually, but I think that our local government and like in the town of Hamden, I'm encouraging the town of Hamden to start to put solar on the town buildings. I mean, I know it's a big investment, But again, even the towns, even our state government, I work for a state office and I work in this big, I don't know, maybe 100,000 square foot building. Why don't we have solar on that building? I'm sure the investment is enormous. But you see, we have all these buildings, our state capitol, every state office, every local building should be outfitted with solar, period. It should just be a non-negotiable.
You're getting at some good points, Rhonda. A lot of people ask, "Hey, what can I, as an individual, do to address climate change?" And one of the main responses is stop being such an individual and act as a group. And so you're talking about putting the pressure on a municipal government, putting the pressure on the state government. And we also need to put the pressure on the federal government because the systems right now are set up and it makes it not so easy to live on just renewables. It's set up so that we burn fossil fuels right now. So we need to make system level changes by putting pressure on elected officials at all levels to get the kinds of clean public transportation we need, to rethink a little bit how cities work and make it easier for people to get around without hopping in the car all the time. We need to rethink a lot of the systems. And one of the biggest system level changes that Citizens Climate Lobby works on is putting a price on carbon. And right now, we can burn stuff and send the pollution off without paying for all the negative consequences it has. So we're proposing that we change it so that those who pollute have to pay for it, and then do it in a way that gets all of us to get on renewables way faster than we are right now.
That is totally awesome. And I definitely agree with you. I think that folks need to start paying for their pollution. And we need to, if you put a price tag on it, it will stop. As long as it's free to pollute the air, it's just free. But the minute you start really charging for this pollution, it will stop. It will totally stop. So in addition to PSAs and local governments, I mean, I always wonder, like, I see these big, even the public transportation buses, they go flying by. Some of them, I know that we have some electrics that they're rolling out now. Now they're rolling out some electric buses. But I mean, again, this is like, we are so far behind, I think. I think that these things should have been rolled out years ago. I know we're all proud of what we're doing now. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Eunice.
For me, it's part of it is we really do have to think long term and not just say, well, why can't we do it right now? It's really, let's do it long term and realize the benefits will accrue in jobs for Connecticut people if we do solar on all those municipal buildings or around, or if we do weatherization. We can't outsource that, but it takes time to get that done, and that could be done on so many homes and buildings here in Connecticut and keep the jobs and the money right in Connecticut when you do that. And the IPCC, I'm trying to remember what the IPCC report did say that carbon pricing is efficient and effective. So it's really something to keep on focusing on, that we have to pay a price to use carbon. Specifically, here in Connecticut, there are two Senate bills right now that it could be really good to ask people to call or write their senators. The first one is SB 10, and that's a continuous commitment to long term carbon electricity, clean zero carbon electricity here in Connecticut, to try to keep it so that new administrations don't change that commitment. So that's SB 10 right now. And then SB 176 is to increase the size of commercial solar that Connecticut will allow to be built. Right now, there's constraints that seem to be unwarranted, and things like commercial entities aren't allowed to put if they're putting solar on their rooftops, they're not allowed to fill the rooftop if they don't use all that electricity. And so SB 176 says, let's change that so that a whole rooftop can be filled, because it makes our system, our grid, more resilient to have electricity close to where it's being used. It's a cheaper way of doing it. So those are two actions that Connecticut voters can work on right now, and needs to happen right now, because the session up there in Hartford is going to end shortly. So I want to encourage people to call their state senators or write and say, let's support SB 10 and let's support SB 176 in this session.
Awesome. And has this already come to public comment? Have they passed that already?
SB 10 just came out of committee, so I
Okay.
don't know. And I believe SB 176 um, is coming up for vote soon. I don't have the timing
Okay.
on that.
Okay. I'll look it up and I'll put it on our page. I'll put together a flyer.
Okay.
And then even if we could just email at this point our legislators and let them know we want to support this. We want to make sure our local people support this legislation. It's really, I mean, it's common sense. I mean, to fill up a whole rooftop,
As long as
that's
you're up there, why not let it all get filled up? Because it benefits the whole community. Cleaner
exactly.
energy. It means less has to be built. If you build off-site in northeastern or northwestern Connecticut,
Hmm.
it's like 2 to 3 times, because of the transmission losses. You have to do that
Mm.
much more. And if you can have solar right in everyone's community, we just make it more resilient.
And see, this is it's going to take legislation. This is that long term goal that we're working on. I mean, I think this we're going to have to evolve people out of kind of our thinking, because I do it all the time too. But I think that if we can introduce legislation every year that gets us closer to reducing that reliance on, I mean, we just have to stop. It's so funny. I always drive to BJ's and Wallingford to get my gas because everything else is, and because it's the lowest price I think in the area. I mean, the line is always all backed out to the street just to get in there. And I'm furious every time every time I have to sit in that line, I'm like, I'm telling you, I'm getting an electric car. That's just the bottom. I'm going to figure out. I don't want a Tesla. I mean, that's kind of like my segue into the next thing is that people like me who really don't like gas, like I don't want to have to keep buying gas. Um, how do we, what do we do? I mean, I know Tesla is a great vehicle, electric vehicle, like long distance miles and whatnot, but it's very expensive. I mean, I guess a Tesla can cost 70 or $80,000. Um, Even like I was looking up, I said, I drive a Honda Accord. Why can't I get an electric Honda? And I think that's like $58,000. So I think that's another barrier. We've got to figure out how we can get people who really want to own an electric vehicle, but really doesn't, I don't want to spend $80,000 on a car. What do we do about that? That's going to be more legislation, I think.
Well, it's legislation and production facilities.
Yeah.
Because right now we're production constrained in the United States, even with Tesla's new factory opening up in Texas.
Hmm.
There just aren't enough electric vehicles for everyone who wants them. And by the way,
Hmm.
the base Tesla vehicle is in the 40,000s. Not
Yeah.
the base is
Not
not
that it's
80,
not that high end.
but yeah. But there are some things that you can do in the meantime. I mean, you can like uh, make sure you're doing all your errands at one time and not going out, like maybe 3 times a week to do errands. If you can do it all at one time, you can save gas that way. You can uh, walk if you can, or get an electric bicycle if you can do errands that way. There are other
Hmm.
electric mobility things that are available right now and are very popular around the world. Electric bikes being one, electric scooters. Um,
Hmm.
but literally, right now, if you wanted to buy an electric car, you can't. not immediate. It's not like they're sitting out there waiting to be bought. People are on waiting lists.
I'm on two
Wow.
waiting lists right now.
Wow.
And some
Wow.
used electric vehicles are as much as new, costing as much as new electric vehicles.
The thing
Wow.
about putting solar panels on your roof or getting an electric vehicle, we know that over the long run, it's going to save you a lot of money. With an electric car, for example, it's way cheaper to charge your car than it is to put gasoline in it. And
Hmm.
you don't need to change the oil, and there's less parts that can break. And so
Hmm.
they've done studies, and they know that over the long run, it's cheaper. The upfront cost right now, it's coming down, but it's still more expensive than your average gas car. And the same thing with solar panels. If you can put the solar panels on your roof, then you're going to be paying nothing to the energy company or very little every month. And then over 10, 20 years, you're going to have saved tens of thousands of dollars. But there's the upfront cost again. And
Right.
so right now, we just recently bought our first house, and so luckily there is low interest financing, uh, and
Hmm.
and so we're going to be able to pay less than what we were paying for energy for electricity every month. That's going to be the amount of our monthly payment.
Hmm.
So we can still not have the money to get the solar panels, but because of low interest financing that's available right now, you can still save a lot of money over the years. And similar
Oh
things
yeah.
are happening with electric vehicles. You can do a lease if you don't have the money to do up front, and I'm looking into to doing that.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and, and then also it's hard, especially now with the high gas prices, to find an electric vehicle. But you can get them for 15,000 used, or around there somewhere. And then the less expensive electric new vehicles are in the mid 20s now. So they've been coming down, and they're expected
Oh
to
good.
come
Okay.
even more. And over in the next year or so, they're talking about it hitting price parity, where you get a similar price for an electric car as you would for a similar level of gas powered car, coming soon.
That's awesome. I can't wait for that to happen. I mean, because we really like, I really do not like gas cars. I tell everybody, get rid of that car, get rid of it. It's terrible. I mean, it just is. It's it's polluting the air. It's costing you a fortune. It's oily. It's terrible. You know, we should all just start to make those. I mean, if you have to get a new car in the next 2 years, think about it.
The
I
thing
really
is,
like all
the prices are coming down for the solar panels and for the electric vehicles, but not fast enough, because we need to be decreasing our emissions faster than we are. And so we need to make systemic changes that will make it so that the prices come down even faster. And a few years ago, a few dozen economists came together, and they wrote a letter, and they published it in the Wall Street Journal. And these were all a bunch of US economists that had won the Nobel Prize in economics. It was ex heads of the Fed, and a few other high ranking officials. And they said, climate change is serious. We need to do something about it. The most efficient thing we can do to decrease our emissions and to tackle this issue is to make it more expensive to pollute, and to put a price on emissions. And what should we
the.
do with the money that's collected from that? We should take it and redistribute it back out to people, but every
Right.
household gets the same amount. That way, we won't debate about it in Congress, and it won't be something that will grow our government if we collect the funds and do something different with them. It just goes straight back out to every household. So the majority of households would break even. Yes, price would go up at the pump, but you're going to make it. If you're the average fossil fuel user, you would break even. And the thing is, every year the price would go up a little bit, is what they recommended. And that sends a signal to everyone, hey, you're thinking of getting a new car in the next few years. It might be similar price to fuel it with gas versus electricity now, not in a few years. So you better think hard and go for that electric car. And hey, GM, Ford, anyone producing cars, you're thinking about how many electric vehicles you want to be producing. You should know that demand is going to go up because every year this price on fossil fuels is going to increase. Luckily, this legislation, the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, they took that exact model that these economists were talking about, and they put it into legislation, which in the House of Representatives right now has 96 sponsors, and they're still it still hasn't been reintroduced on the Senate side. So that's legislation we've been working on and advocating for as Citizens Climate Lobby. But right now, you might have heard in the Build Back Better plan that was passed on the House side that there were a lot of measures that they wanted to take for climate change. That's stalled. They're looking at doing something on the Senate side right now, and they're talking about putting a price on carbon, which according to these economists is the best thing we could do, which according to most people who a lot of people who are thinking about climate change and thinking about economics, it's the best thing that we could do. And so they're looking at that in the Senate in a reconciliation package right now over the next month or so. And so Citizens Climate Lobby has a campaign, which I just dropped for you, Rhonda, in the chat, if you want to use that and spread the word, where we're making the connection between what's happening in Ukraine and wanting to be energy independent. We see that Europe is having to spend tons of money and send it to Putin right now, despite not wanting to, because they're dependent upon fossil fuels. So we want to do the same thing they're trying to do, of getting off the fossil fuels and doing it as quickly as possible so that we could become energy independent and decrease our emissions to deal with climate change.
Yeah, I cannot wait till we start seeing some really big time federal sweeping legislation to do exactly this. I mean, that's again, that's going to be that's going to be the deal breaker, really, because if we can just make it a national movement, because it seems like, people in states are doing things differently. Like I was watching a documentary about how California PGE is doing really a lot of work with Tesla on, the energy storage modules that they're building all over. But I don't know how much Connecticut's doing. I don't know if Connecticut's doing anything, honestly. I don't know if, United Illuminating, I'm not too sure. I mean, we need to know more.
I can tell you that as of January 1st of this year, for residential and commercial, there are new programs to incentivize people to add batteries to their houses with and without solar. And they get a rebate back from Eversource and United Illuminating. But then the battery also gets used to help our grid be more resilient, especially at those peak times. So it's a great program to look up, and you do it through your either Eversource or United Illuminating or your contractor you're working with, solar, and you don't have to work with solar. It can be just a standalone battery. And it is a great thing for strengthening our grid. So I know that is a very popular idea right now because it's been proven to really help in the resiliency. I don't know if we have any. I can tell you there's going to be a big commercial battery at the Marcel Hotel near IKEA in New Haven. Because they have put up solar canopies, and they're going to have a battery. And I'm not sure, it might be in conjunction with IKEA, but it's again to help on a larger scale back up and help that area of the grid be more resilient.
That is brilliant. You see, again, because like when we have one of these really very hot, overheated summers, why are we all pulling from the grid? Again, this is perfect. I think it's a great opportunity again to prevent those brownouts or even those power outages that we've seen because we've just kind of overloaded the system.
You were asking a little bit about what Connecticut is doing, and Connecticut is like a lot of places in a way, in that we know we need to do something, and we've set some good long-term goals, and say by 2050 we need to decrease our emissions by almost 100%, and so a lot of countries have said similar things, but the emissions have continued to increase at a global scale. So we aren't making the short-term goals that we need, and we aren't meeting the short-term goals that we're setting. And so similar thing is happening in Connecticut. And we need to put the pressure on our elected officials and hold them accountable. The majority of people in the United States, 76% of people know that climate change is happening here in the United States. They understand that. And then we have 70% of people saying that they're either very worried or somewhat worried about climate change. And then 70% say that we should transition the US economy from fossil fuels to 100% clean energy by 2050. But we need to get organized as people, as groups, as communities, because we're all thinking along those similar lines, the majority of us, but we need to now make it happen by organizing in groups to put the pressure on elected officials.
I think that's great. If you let me know when you're ready to organize in Connecticut, because I would definitely want to be a part of that because it's so important. And I think everybody, with any kind of, social media platform, we should be doing our own personal PSAs. I mean, I think that even if I knew what, measures Connecticut was doing, like Eversource and UI and what they were doing, I would put out flyers and say, look, this is what's happening with your utility company. And I have some friends that have solar in their house. They don't even know what a light bill even looks like. It's hilarious. They have the air conditioner blasting because they're like, we don't get a bill. I mean, they got a bill one time. It was like $1.75 or something. Like, it was hilarious. And meanwhile, everybody else is like, turn it down, So I just think that we should get out the word more. I think we should all use our, what I'm doing now is trying to use my social media platform to get the word out. And then we should educate. Everybody should be educated more on, we just have a bullet point list of what things we all can do as individuals to help this. And then start introducing it, like you said, to our local community, our state community, and obviously our federal representatives definitely should be all over this.
I mean, first thing, start talking about it, because most people aren't talking about it and hearing their friends talk about it. Second thing, reach out to your elected official and say, hey, what are you doing about this? I'm concerned, and we really need to take action. And third thing, join a group that's doing that. If you're into what Citizens Climate Lobby is doing, we'd be happy to have you. And then anything you are doing as an individual, and putting the solar panels on your roof, or whatever it might be, get as many people to do it with you as possible and tell them all about it. The less we can be individuals, and the more we can act in groups, the better we're going to do with this. Yes,
carpool, do all the things you can do, carpool, like you said, try to get all your errands done in one shot. I was loving the fact when we were working from home, that was the best thing ever, because I drive from Hamden to Rocky Hill. I mean, that's not close, and I'm, back to doing that, but they're only having us going back part-time, which is great. So we're never going to go back full-time because it doesn't make sense. Everything was getting done while we're sitting at home for 2 years. So I just think that it's just so cool. that we should continue to have these conversations. I really want to do I'm going to probably put these flyers out and do like a little mailer to everybody in my network about SB 10 and SB 176. I'll do that probably
Great.
tomorrow. Send out a little mailer. Tell them to call. I'm going to call Martin Looney. I'm going to send him a text, and I'm going to say, "What are you doing?" You know, because I know that they're, you know, we're having our convention, so they're going to want. I'm a delegate, so they're going to want me to vote for them. So this is the opportunity where I'll have their attention to see if you can vote for this, then I can probably vote for you at the convention in May. You know,
put the pressure on them. I like it, Rhonda.
Yeah, you know, take whatever power we have, you know. But I want to continue to have more conversations. And if you have any more legislation or anything that you want to roll out that's new for Connecticut, please text me or inbox me so I can, you know, schedule another. We have to continue to have these conversations. Like you said, get people talking about it, get them interested, give them literature to read, so we can all know what we need to do. I know I always have like a little solar backup plan, so in case the power goes out, I'm ready. You know?
So I do want to bring up, because we talked about the battery and Eversource and United Illuminating, there are energy audits that every household can ask, and it might cost a little bit, but it's really a first step into getting your house more energy efficient. I believe both Eversource and United Illuminating have a website for contacting them and asking for energy audits, because then there are incentives for like heat pumps and heat pump water heaters and insulation. And I know some of the incentives change, but I believe there are incentives that are good for households, including there are extra incentives for households of social justice tracts, census tracts with less than median income. That almost makes energy efficiency in houses no cost to them. So it's really an important thing to get out as well. That's not just that there are incentives or low cost interest loans for solar and for the batteries, but there are incentives through this energy audit. That's the portal to it for households in Connecticut and businesses as well.
Rhonda, I've just dropped the link for this program that Eunice is talking about into the chat. So please include that. It's called Home Energy Solutions. And I paid $50 to have my whole house checked out. But if you're a low income family, it will be for free. And then there will be lots of extra incentives for low income families as well.
Totally awesome. See, this is all information that most people probably don't know about. And so we're going to keep educating our community here in New Haven County, and hopefully around the state of Connecticut, we can broadcast this. I'm going to run this video today, and probably we're going to kind of keep running it. And then I'll reach out again if there's any other new things that are happening that, you know, Connecticut folks can get involved with or know more about or get educated. Please just reach out, and I'd be happy to participate in hosting anything to help this. This is so important.
All right.
Rhonda, thank you so much for the conversation.
Yes, and thank you so much for your time today. And let's continue this conversation. Let's keep talking.
All right.
Will do.
Thank you. Happy Easter. Have a good holiday. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.